Alright guys, we're back in the garage, starting to troubleshoot the YZ. As you can see, I've got the plastic tank off. Wanted to point out a couple small things I noticed that were also broken that I didn't see in the first video. This caliper guard is broken, super minor piece, but when I do a fix-up and flip project, I try to make sure everything is right as much as I can. When I'm flipping, definitely don't like to sell anything, kind of half-assed or whatever, if you will. Also, this little mud flap is broken, so gonna plan to replace that. Didn't mention it in the first video, but I believe this bike is a 99. That's what the seller told me, but I haven't run the VIN or anything yet to be sure. So for troubleshooting the no spark issue, first thing I did was check continuity on the start-stop. There is continuity with the button depressed, and there's not with it released, so that was not our problem. Also, real quick, just pop the flywheel cover off. The stator mark, or the stator wheels indexed correctly, and I took the flywheel nut off, and the key is not sheared, so we should be all good there. So the next kind of easy thing I checked was I pulled the boot off and clipped back the wire a little bit. There was some corrosion in the wire. And then I tested for spark with the boot removed and the wire up against the cylinder head, and I had spark. So that led me to believe the plug was bad, and it was. So just ran to AutoZone, got myself a new plug, and I'm not sure if you can see it there, but we do have spark now. So I could have just dumped premix down the cylinder and fired this thing up, but couldn't help myself. Gonna dive into the carb real quick and see what that looks like. Don't have any kind of tripod set up yet, so I'm just gonna do my best to get a good angle of this here. One thing that I always do removing these Phillips screws is use a Vessel JIS screwdriver. Pretty much any screw on a Japanese motorcycle is not actually a Phillips, it is a JIS. The way you can usually tell, I don't see them on these screws here, but typically on the screw head there'll be a really tiny dot that'll indicate it's JIS, but for anything Japanese, you can almost guarantee that it's going to be a JIS screw, unless it's been replaced in the past. So not 100% sure how long this bike has been sitting, so not sure what this is going to look like, but figured while I had the bike halfway apart, might as well go through it real quick. So that looks amazing. There's only a tiny bit of debris down there in the float bowl screw. So I'm going to give this a super quick clean and toss it back on the bike and see if it'll start. There's a tiny bit of debris there. I'll take this all apart real quick and use carb clean, compressed air, blow through the jets, clean out all the passages, and then we'll be right back. So got the carb pulled all apart and cleaned. Did a quick carb clean and compressed air through the pilot jet and the main jet. I don't think both of them really needed it. They were in really good shape. But I did pull out the needle seat here. I always check the O-ring on these. They'll get dried out, cracked, and they'll no longer seal. They'll cause you to leak fuel out your overflow. That one looks good. But one thing I did notice down in the needle seat area is there is a tiny little piece of old rubber O-ring. That's something I've seen a couple times, so definitely something to watch out for when you're cleaning a carb, because that will cause your float needle not to seat in the needle seat, and you'll just leak gas out the overflow. Another thing that I've I've seen in the past on these carbs is if you remove these two Torx bits here, it removes the jet block that you can see right there. I know there's an issue on the 2017 KTMs that jet block gasket goes bad. I haven't ever heard of it on the YZs, so I'm not going to remove it for now unless I have any sort of running issues with the bike. So I'm going to put this all back together and put it on the bike and try to fire it up. So a couple things I thought about as I was putting this back together. One thing I like to do is always record what I have in the bike for jetting, whether that's just for my records or for the new owner. So this bike's got a 320 main. The Pilot is unlabeled, which I don't love. Probably means it's an aftermarket jet. So we'll just see how it runs, go from there. It's got a 6.5 slide, and down there at the bottom is the number on the needle, and it's on the third clip. I also checked float height. So with almost every carb out there, you're going to want to hold it at about a 45-degree angle and make sure that that flat line on the float is parallel to the carb body, which you can see ours is about perfect. When you're doing this, you want to be sure that you don't compress it too much and compress the little spring on the needle there and give yourself an inaccurate reading. So it should just be at a 45, just resting on that needle. So I think ours is perfect. And yeah, let's go ahead and throw it on. So a couple things I noticed as I was putting the carb back in. Like I mentioned before, when I do this, these kind of projects, I really like to make sure that I, get everything back to is stock, or all the parts back on as possible. So did notice this front sprocket guard, chain guard is missing, so definitely gonna have to order one of those. Another thing I noticed, don't know how well you can see this, but this has a ton of play, so I'm gonna go ahead and remove that and hope that our splines on the shaft are still in good shape. So I'll remove that and be right back. So got the shifter off. The splines on the shaft look pretty decent still, so not super worried. My guess is the shift lever they had on is something super cheap, eBay, Amazon, that's Chinese and not quite the right fitment. So lesson for everybody, don't use cheap Chinese parts. Try to use OEM when you can. For aftermarket stuff, I've had really good luck with Tusk from Rocky Mountain, so we'll get one of those on order and get that installed. All right, the bike is all back together. Gonna give it its first start here, hopefully. It's pretty late, so just gonna see if it runs for a couple seconds, and we'll pick back up tomorrow. Forgot to tighten the throttle housing. Let me tighten that down real quick. And we'll go again. So for whatever reason, that's idling super high. Gonna turn the idle down quick and try it again. So I didn't notice it earlier, but the idle screw was pretty much all the way in. So backed it out a little bit. We'll give it another try.